Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Age of Sigmar 3. Yes, again, of course we're going to talk about Age of Sigmar 3. It is the brand new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar that's just about to come out. Now, we were given the full rules yesterday. Everyone can get them free to download. The core rules, that is. This does not include any open, matched, or narrative play additional content, nor no points or anything you might find in the GHB. It's very much like we have now, the very basic core rules of the game. Now, there are definitely some ways that we've found and we've gotten the full rule set as well, and you can go find that online if that's what you really want to do. But what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about 10 rule changes you might have missed. Now, everyone knows, the major stuff like unit coherency and like the monstrous rampage table and the heroic abilities and all the big stuff that GW's really talked about. But what I want to talk about today is a few little maybe unseen rules or nice little changes that have happened that maybe haven't been front and center of any GW or other major sort of news outlets for this publications, and so I want to talk about them. I want to talk about either rules that I think are really cool and will really change up the game in bigger ways than what maybe their, lack of talk about them will seem. And I also want to talk about some that maybe are like some corner cases that actually change up some things in the game for particular armies. So, without further ado, I'm going to get cracking into this, and this is 10 rule changes you might have missed for Age of Sigmar 3. Number 1, at the double, making run rolls. So before we could use a command point to make a run roll a 6, turn the roll of the dice into a 6. This is no longer the case. In the new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, we have to either choose to make the run roll a 6 or roll the dice. You cannot do both. You don't get the best of both worlds now. No more can you roll the dice, try to get that 5 or 6 and then go, oh well, I've saved a command point there. No, you have to spend that command point to get the 6. Otherwise, you have to roll. This is a great change. It stops, the guaranteeing those 6-inch runs to win games and stuff like this. It really makes it a more tactical choice. You're either going to have to spend resources to do it. In that case, is it worth spending the resource? Or you're going to have to just roll and hope. I really like this change. It's a really nice little change that I don't think it's been talked about enough. Number 2, you cannot retreat and run. This is a massive change in general. They've really specified different sort of moves in the game. No longer is a normal move pretty much everything except a charge. Now charges, runs, retreats, all of these are different things now. This does make Blood Knights and a bunch of their rules make sense, but however, I think the big part of this is you cannot retreat and run. This is a massive thing and was really popular on a lot of units that had the ability to retreat in combat, say like Skinks or of previous times in the edition, Caradron Overlords with their Thunderers when they could retreat from their previous book. It's really been a massive thing of like running and retreating, of getting that extra move, sort of hitting into your opponent, retreating off, capping the objectives behind them. No longer do you get to run and retreat. A massive change, and I really don't think people understand how big a change this could be, especially at like top tier competitive stuff. This is massive. Number 3, returning reanimated models. No longer can you return models to a unit, say like skeletons, when you start bringing them back with necromancers and all of that sort of stuff, and string them out in a conga line to cap objectives and block off your opponent's path. Not only do the units have to be brought back into coherency, those rules there just making this a problem straight away of like conga lining out, but they also have to be brought back within range of models that were not slain. So the reanimated models have to form around your ranks rather than extend them. This is a massive change and really changes how we use reanimated models and stuff in the game, and can actually make it so your opponents can actually make it so your units cannot reanimate. Because if they start crunching in, they are going to force you to have no space to actually bring back these reanimated models. Number 4, Miscasts and Divine Wrath. Now, I don't think anyone has missed this rule at all. However, I think there's a really little nuanced thing here with Lumineth that actually is quite interesting. Now, when the Lumineth Realm Lords have their Venari units, so the Wardens and the Sentinels and the cavalry make their casting rolls, it's actually the unit champion that casts a spell. They are the only model in the unit that is a wizard, and they provide the buff for the rest of the unit. Now, if they roll a miscast, they take the damage because they're the wizards. And so it actually, if they take the mortal wounds and they die from them, they actually remove the wizard entirely from the unit. This can be really bad for the Lumineth, as also their Shrine Luminor doesn't allow units to reroll. It only allows heroes to do the reroll. So you miscast on your Venari units can actually be quite devastating to the unit. If you miscast, kill your leader, all of a sudden it's got no access to any magic at all out from itself, and it can't even use commands as well because it's going to lose its leader, so it's going to rely on other units around it buffing it up. This can be a big thing for Venari units. Number 5, modifiers applied after rerolls. Now, I know a lot of people actually played this rule this way for a long time, but actually how the rule worked before was modifiers were applied before rerolls. So if you hit on, say, 2s and your opponent gave you -1, but you got to reroll, say, a bunch of dice, you actually couldn't reroll the 2s because then they didn't modify it. It's really confusing how it used to actually work, and I don't think I actually explained it properly anyway. But either way, ignore that, because modifiers apply after rerolls. This is the common sense way that it should always have been. I know many people have played the game exactly like this for a long time, so glad to see it there. Number 6, only one trigger ability can work on a single dice roll. Now, trigger abilities, what I'm referring to here are abilities that say when you roll a 6 to hit, it does it makes 2 hits instead of 1, or when you roll a 6 to hit, it does D3 mortal wounds and the attack sequence ends. When you roll a dice now, you used to be able to apply both effects once. However, when you roll a dice now, you can only ever apply an effect from one, and the player who is making the roll gets to choose what effect. So, for instance, if you have Putrid Blight Kings, for example, that allow you to, when you roll a 6 to hit, it becomes D6 hits instead of 1. And your opponent makes you if you roll a 6 to hit, you miss or something like that. You choose to apply yours and you ignore your opponent's. Only one ability can trigger at once on this roll. Number 7, Lookout Sirs changes. I think this has been probably one of the more common ones, I think, in the list that a lot of people are going to know about, but it does change quite a few things for a bunch of different armies. Lookout Sir can now only be used by models with less than 10 wounds. This means that non-monster characters with over 10 wounds, like the Eidolons of Mathland, or weird chariot things that aren't monsters but totally are, effectively monsters, like the Cauldron of Blood and the Screaming Bell, no longer get Lookout Sir. This is particularly big for Skaven, where they no longer get Lookout Sir with Screaming Bells in combat. So there's some pretty big changes from this, but it is a rule that has, I guess, widespread effects on a ton of different models. Number 8, cover now works while you're behind it. So probably, I guess, the biggest disappointment of this current edition of Age of Sigmar and the new rules is the lack of changes to terrain. However, there is one change I think that is really nice with how terrain works, and that's if you're wholly behind terrain and your opponent can't draw a line of sight to any of your models from their unit, or any particular model can't draw a line of sight without drawing its line of sight through terrain, you actually do get cover for being behind the terrain. So, it's not an amazing rule, but it is something, and it really does change up how terrain works. So getting +1 save for just standing behind some barricades and stuff like that is really cool. And I think a welcome change to cover and how it works. Another big change to the game is units can only contest one objective. Now, this doesn't mean that units can't be the reason you control more than one. Certainly if a unit moves around the battlefield and takes control of a different one every turn, that is still completely legal. However, what they cannot do now is they can't be, when you are making the decisions on who controls what objective, a unit can only choose to contest for one objective, regardless if it's got models on every objective on the table, which is unlikely with the new coherency rules, but you get what I mean. A unit can now only contest for one objective a turn, and that is how it works. It's a really nice change, but it is a really massive change, because with this alongside coherency is really making us keep our units either small or stick together. And lastly, number 10, Grand Alliance armies are gone by the looks of it. Now, how it determines what a allegiance is within the book, it sort of makes it impossible for Grand Alliance armies to be a thing. Also, in the previous core rulebook, we got the Grand Alliance allegiance abilities, artifacts, etc., and we didn't get that in this core rulebook. So, it is highly likely that the Grand Alliance armies are a thing of the past and no longer existing in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. For me, this is a bit of a mixed thing. I played against the Grand Alliance army in a tournament not too long ago. It was great fun to play against. I think there's some really cool things that could be done with them, but maybe they just stayed in narrative play and maybe they're just gone to in match play. Maybe it's a good thing. It allows GW to make rules without having to wonder about how it will interact with other things in the game. Certainly an interesting thing nonetheless. Well, that was our list of rules and sort of nuances with rules going under the radar a little bit. I'd love to know some of yours that maybe you think even we've missed, that you think are worth a mention. Love to hear what you're thinking of all the new rules, what you managed to pick up that you didn't pick up on like first glance and stuff like that. Let us know in the comments below, all this stuff. Would love to hear from you all. Well, thank you for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our fine little community here at Sinful Gaming, you can do so by joining our Discord server, which you'll find a link to in the description of the video. And while you're on YouTube, why not go check out my featured channel section on the channel, where there's a bunch of other fantastic Warhammer Age of Sigmar content creators doing everything from painting videos, lore videos, tactical videos, and more besides that as well. Lastly, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel financially. Thank you to our Patreon members, Christian Weir, James, Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lull, Outer and Shot Furs, James Crowder, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, Tim Newman, The Rising Ape, Q Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, MJ, and Dynet226. Thank you to our YouTube members, Green Roots Gaming, Fire Titan, Steve T, The Real Zeop, Chris Wallace, Turai12, Vinny, Loch Lorick, and Matt Mollum. And a special thanks to everyone who helps the channel, like our fantastic channel artist, Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the channel art you've been seeing lately. And thank you to Xmorphic, who does a fantastic job help moderating and run our Discord server. If you'd like to come help support the channel like these fine people do, you can do so by following the links in the description to either Patreon or YouTube members, or grabbing yourself some Sinful Gaming merch in the link to our Teespring. Thank you all for watching. Once again, stay safe everyone, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.